Washington, D.C., the streets are shaking, protests are erupting, and the media is in a frenzy. And the political establishment, they're convinced that they finally trapped President Trump. But here's the part that they're never going to admit on CNN, in the Washington Post, or from MSNBC, or really from any of the podiums on his loudest critics. Every single move that they've made in the last 72 hours has played directly into his hands. And what you're about to see isn't the story of a president scrambling to survive. It's the story of a commander-in-chief who just flipped DC's chaos into the biggest strategic win of his presidency so far. Now, this morning, federal agents from the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, and Homeland Security, they're flooding the Capitol. Washington, D.C., guys, criminal networks, they're on the run. And in the middle of it all, Trump is finally pulling off a maneuver that's so bold and so unexpected that his enemies, from the city council to foreign capitals, they're scrambling, trying to figure out what just hit them. So, guys, in the next few minutes, I'm going to take you inside the explosive protests that the media is twisting to hide the real reason behind them. The federal crackdown plan that has DC's political machine quietly panicking. And, of course, the brilliant under-the-radar twist that has even his fiercest critics realizing that they've been outplayed. And I'm going to tell you exactly why, when this is over, Trump's media, or Trump's enemies, might wish that they never challenged him here in the heart of America's capital. So if you appreciate the news updates, click the like button and subscribe. Thank you so much, guys. So today, the heart of America's capital is on fire with political and social tension. Massive protests are sweeping through D.C. streets. Streets are blocked off. Megaphones are blaring. Cameras are flashing. And if you flip on the mainstream media news networks, you would think that we're watching the collapse of order under President Trump. That's their story. That's their headline. And this is exactly what they want you to believe. But here's what they're not telling you. This so-called chaos, it's not the spontaneous cry of a city under siege by its own president. No, this is the coordinated backlash of an entrenched establishment that has lived comfortably for years in a climate of unchecked crime, political theater, and this revolving door of violent offenders. So for them, the worst nightmare isn't disorder in DC. It's the reality that someone is finally putting an end to it. And so that someone is Donald J. Trump. And wait until you hear what his first move was. This is a decision months in the making, guys, designed to clean up the Capitol and also put his opponents exactly where he wants them. So back in March of this year, President Trump, he signed an executive order that many in the media dismissed as symbolic. Now, what they didn't realize was that this was the opening shot of a far bigger strategy. They just weren't aware of it. So the order set in motion a zero-tolerance crackdown on violent crime, organized gang activity, and street lawlessness in Washington, D.C. And Trump was clear. He was crystal clear in his Truth Social post at the time. He said the homeless will be the homeless will be moved out immediately to safe shelter, but far from the Capitol. Criminals will be jailed where they belong, and it will happen fast, just like the border. Now, notice the difference here. This isn't a heartless purge like his enemies like to claim. Shelters are offered. Care is given. I mean, actually, you're going from homeless to being indoors. That's a plus, especially in the wintertime. But the priority is, and always has been, the safety of law-abiding citizens. And so this is where the brilliance comes in. By laying the legal and operational groundwork months in advance, Trump made sure that when the crackdown began, every agency, every resource, and every legal authority that he needed was already in place. That was brilliant, actually. In fact, the protests that you now see, they're not the cause of Trump's actions. They're the reaction to a plan that's already moving forward, and it's moving faster than his critics can even try to spin this thing. And so next, I want to show you guys the exact moment that this plan went from an executive order on paper to a boots on the ground operation that's got the DC establishment scrambling, trying to keep up. So here's what most people miss. Just because your doctor is in network this year doesn't mean they're going to be in network next year. Now, I partner with Chapter because they catch these changes before they hit you by surprise. Nancy, she saved $600 a year by switching early. Sharon Bertusik, she went from an $89 copay down to $20. Guys, from $89 to $20, I'd be in the street celebrating. So Oh, and on top of that, she got zero premiums and $0 medication costs. So if you wait until January, to find out that your doctor's gone, oh, by then it's too late. So don't wait until then. Call right now. Pick up the phone right now. The phone number is down on your screen, 909-563-8279, or visit them at askchapter.org/Ron. Call them now so that you're not scrambling later. And by the way, it's totally free. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So this wasn't just a memo from the Oval Office. The memo, the order, guys, the moment that this order went live, President Trump, he unleashed what I can only describe as a full spectrum federal surge in Washington, D.C. Guys, we're talking about agents from the FBI, the DEA, ATF, and Homeland Security. They all mobilized in force for a minimum 7-day push. Now, this wasn't symbolic. It was very tactical. 100 plus FBI agents reassigned to overnight shifts, working side by side with local police. Entire federal task forces redirected to choke off the gang networks, illegal gun trafficking, and the repeat violent offenders that the local courts have let roam free. Now, here's where Trump's constitutional authority comes into place, okay? Something that his critics hate to admit, as President Trump, he has direct command over the DC National Guard, okay? The decision to deploy the National Guard this is going to change the game. And so there's nothing that the local political class can do to stop it. The establishment screams federal overreach. But let's be clear, guys, this isn't overreach. This is the president of the United States doing his duly elected, role. He's supposed to be protecting the America's capital for tourists, for workers, for families who live there, and for every citizen who expects their seat of government to be safe, not lawless. So comment National Guard if you're in support of Trump releasing the National Guard in Washington, D.C. And yet, while Trump is moving pieces on the board with precision, D.C.'s mayor is forced into a position that she didn't expect. Now, this is one that even the media couldn't even spin this one into a public fight, okay? So D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has been one of Trump's loudest critics in the past. And you may know, you may not know. So anyway, but in this particular moment, she could not play the part that the media wanted. She acknowledged publicly DC's crime rate. She acknowledged that DC's crime rate is down. It's down by as much as 20 to 26% from last year. And that federal assistance is absolutely the president's prerogative. Now think about that, right? In an era where every headline is designed to pit local officials against Trump, here we had a very rare moment of respect. A mayor saying she's going to work with the president, and a president calling her a great person. Wow. Now, don't mistake that for a love fest, okay, guys? Because behind the scenes, establishment insiders, they're still grinding their teeth because they know that if this works, if Trump can deliver results in this one city that they thought that they control completely, it's not just a win for him in DC. This is a blueprint for every other city in America. And they're just going to roll it out city after city. And we're not done yet, because the next piece of the story, this is the one that really exposes why the protests are getting even louder, why the headlines are getting nastier, and the political knives are coming out. So it's not just about the gangs and the drugs or the political optics. It's about the one issue that even Muriel Bowser had to admit is out of control, and Trump is about to take it on head on. So one of the dirtiest secrets in Washington, D.C. right now is that violent youth crime has been exploding under the surface, and the local system can't or won't deal with it. Just last weekend, a teenager opened fire on a group of other young people with a stolen gun in a busy, popular neighborhood. By the grace of God, no one was hit. He was arrested. But here's the problem. Under DC law, offenders like him almost never face adult charges, even when they commit adult crimes. So this is why President Trump and his plans cut right past the politics. He's ordering federal prosecutors, U.S. attorneys to step in and take over cases that the local system refuses to handle. This means that these gang members, these carjackers, and repeat violent offenders will face real consequences, not just a slap on the wrist. And to make sure that the message is heard loud and clear, A juvenile curfew has already been enforced in the hot zones. This is a move that even critics admit has reduced late night trouble in targeted neighborhoods. Now, Trump's critics, they can scream about optics all they want, but the criminals hear the message. The era of leniency is over. And it's not just about safety. It's about what the world sees when they look at the capital of the United States. Now, President Trump, he didn't mince words when he talked about Washington's current state. Dirty, unsafe, disgusting. These aren't insults. They're a challenge because in just days, he'll be meeting with world leaders, including Vladimir Putin, and he refuses to let America's capital look like it's in decline. So this isn't about ego, guys. This is about history. The capital of the United States should project strength, pride, and stability, not the image of a city covered in graffiti, trash, and tent encampments. And so here's where his compassion comes in. Relocating the homeless isn't about sweeping people under the rug. It's about moving them to real shelters where they can get help, where, meanwhile, at the same time, they're restoring the safety and the dignity of the neighborhoods and the monuments that represent all Americans. Now, for Trump, this is really about more than a meeting with Putin. It's about sending a message to every ally and every adversary that the United States doesn't tolerate disorder in the heart of its government. And yet, as the city starts to kind of just change before the cameras, something else is happening. The protests are growing louder, they're more organized, and they're more desperate. So, excuse me, that's where we go next, because this is the part where Trump's enemies think that they've got him cornered, but in reality, they just walked into his trap. So the protests in D.C. right now, they're not random. These aren't just average residents spontaneously hitting the streets out of fear. I want you to look closely at these signs. No Trump Gestapo, freedom, not fascism. Release the Epstein files. The chants are designed for the cameras. The slogans crafted for the headlines. This is the establishment's playbook in action. Create the optics of massive public outrage, flood the airwaves with selective sound bites, and then hope that the chaos overshadows the actual results of Trump's crackdown. But here's the part that they didn't factor in. Trump thrives in this environment. He's been here before, surrounded by critics, accused of overreach, attacked from every direction. And instead of reacting with anger and being immature about it, he's letting them play their hand, burn their own credibility, rally the opposition in plain view. Fine, go ahead and do that, right? Because while they're out there screaming into the megaphones, his federal teams are quietly executing arrests, gathering intelligence, and dismantling the very criminal networks that feed this unrest that we're talking about here. So, in other words, the protests are not derailing Trump's plan. They're the cover that he needs to finish it. So, and for anybody who's still out there shouting illegal or unconstitutional overreach, let's get the facts straight. Under the Home Rule Act, Washington, D.C. is legally a ward of the federal government. Congress holds ultimate authority. And in an emergency, the president has the power to take control of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. So, Greg Jarrett, one of the most respected legal analysts in the country, he put it bluntly. Trump's move is lawful. It's necessary, and it's fully within his constitutional duty to protect the Capitol. Now, for a prolonged takeover of D.C.'s government, yes, he would need congressional approval. But that's not what's happening here. Right now, he's flooding the zone with federal law enforcement. He's shifting prosecutions to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he's exercising the powers of the presidency exactly as intended. So it's the kind of move that sends a chill through his opponents, not because it's illegal, but because it works. And if it works here, then there's nothing stopping Trump from using the same approach in other cities that have let crime spiral out of control. You see where we're going here, right? And so this is exactly why the pushback it's about to get nastier. So the next phase of this operation puts Trump on a direct collision course with DC's progressive legal establishment, and he's not flinching. So here's where the game changes. President Trump isn't just sending more agents into the streets. He's changing who holds the gavel when it comes to justice in DC. Now, for years, the local prosecutors, they've been notorious for dropping charges, plea bargains, violent felonies down to misdemeanors. I mean, we've seen it in New York City. DA Alvin Bragg, he did it. Anyway, they turn a blind eye to repeat offenders. But now Trump has ordered U.S. attorneys to take over the cases the D.C. Attorney General refuses to prosecute. Now, this right here, folks, this is the legal equivalent to cutting the power to the opposition's command center. It bypasses their entire political machine. And Trump's message could not be any clearer. Be prepared. The leniency era is over. Now, if you're running gangs, terrorizing neighborhoods, or, treating the law like a joke, you're going to face federal charges with federal sentencing in federal court. So this move puts Trump in direct conflict with the progressive legal establishment that's been protecting its own failed policies for years. They know that once people see the results, their excuses are not going to hold up. And so that's exactly where the brilliance of this plan actually shines. Because while they're screaming about fascism and overreach, Trump is turning their outrage into the perfect political shield. So this is the part the media will never admit. The protests, the headlines, the nonstop panel debates on cable news, all of it is giving Trump exactly what he wants. Every camera pointed at DC right now, it's capturing two things: the anger of a political class that's losing control, the decisive actions of a president who's restoring it. Internationally, it's a signal to leaders like Putin and Xi Jinping and every world leader capital or world capital that America's leadership isn't afraid to take back its own capital by force if necessary. Domestically, it's a reminder to every voter that's, who's been living in fear that, yes, you can have a president who acts, who delivers, and who doesn't flinch when the establishment attacks. It's not just law enforcement, it's political jujitsu. His critics, they're throwing everything that they have at him. And instead of blocking it, he's using their momentum to push his own agenda further. And if you think that's powerful, wait until you hear what's fueling Trump's determination, because this isn't just about policy or optics. The next part of the story is about people, real families who've lived in the cost of DC's crime firsthand, and why Trump has made this fight personal. So this crackdown here isn't just about crime stats or political wins. It's about people. Families in DC have been living this nightmare for years. Parents who have buried their own children because gang members treated murder like a game. Elderly parents, elderly residents who have been assaulted walking home from the grocery store. Hardworking Americans who have been carjacked in broad daylight. One grieving father put it best: the capital of the United States should be the safest city in the country. It should be, right? Does anyone agree or disagree with that? Shouldn't the capital of the United States be the safest city in the country? And so this is why this isn't politics for President Trump. It's personal. He's not just fighting for his own image. He's fighting for every innocent person who's been failed by a system that protects criminals over citizens. Every day, the establishment drags its feet. More families suffer. And Trump knows that waiting is not an option. That urgency is what's driving him to take unprecedented action, no matter how loud the protests get or how many headlines attack him. And so make no mistake, this is bigger than DC. What's happening right now, this is a message to every city that's been overrun by crime and incompetence. If local leaders won't protect their people, the federal government will. And it's also a signal to the world that America's capital, it's not a playground for criminals. It's not a playground for anarchists or corrupt politicians. It is a fortress of law, order, and stability. Now, by outsmarting his enemies, by using their own outrage as fuel, Trump has shown that decisive leadership can still cut through political gridlock and media spin. And for the establishment, this isn't just a defeat. This is a warning, because if he can pull this off in one city, then, especially in a city that they thought that they controlled forever, there's nothing stopping him from being able to take the same model to fight all the other states that are overwhelmed by lawlessness and strongholds in America. So let the cameras roll. Let the protest scream, because in the heart of DC on August 12th, 2025, President Donald J. Trump just proved that when chaos explodes, he doesn't just survive it, he turns it into his most brilliant strike yet. So now, before you go, YouTube thinks that you're really going to enjoy the next video that just popped up on your screen right now. And honestly, They're probably right. So click that video right now. Keep watching, because this is going to connect perfectly with what we just covered, and you're not going to want to miss what's in it. So I'll see you guys on the next one, and take care. God bless.